Internet, it's Matt here for the Dork Lords. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We talk about all manner of dorkly things here, so whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, superheroes, we probably have a playlist about it. Feel free to check us out. Today is another in our Dork Lord of the Rings segments. And today we're going to be talking about Aragorn's cryptic cat quote. Specifically, it deals with the cats of Queen Beruthiel. All right, I set the scene. We're in Moria. It's dark. People are worried. Where are we going? Are we lost? And Aragorn is reassuring the company that Gandalf knows where he's going. And the quote is, he's talking specifically about Gandalf. It's like, Gandalf is surer of finding the way home in a blind night than the cats of Queen Beruthiel. All right, boom. That's the only thing we hear about it in Lord of the Rings. But there she is. She's out for us to see. Who's this Queen Beruthiel? What's the deal with her cats? Why is Aragorn mentioning this in this moment? Interestingly, in an interview, Tolkien mentioned the cats of Queen Beruthiel as kind of a funny little evidence. He was saying everything in Lord of the Rings, every reference has a backstory, a well-realized backstory, except two things. One involved the Blue Wizards. He didn't call them the Blue Wizards. He said the other two wizards. But the Blue Wizards, which I've done a video about, fascinating, Alatar and Palando. There's a quote, again, it's one line where Saruman is talking to Gandalf, and he says that Gandalf would like nothing better than to have the staves of all five wizards. You're like, five? There's only Radagast, Gandalf, Saruman. Who are the other two? Well, it's Alatar and Palando. At that time, I guess maybe in his notes he hadn't fully realized Alatar and Palando at the time of this. He was interviewed. But so there's that and the cats of Queen Beruthiel were the only two things he said in the entire Lord of the Rings that didn't have their own backstory, which is so impressive. Lesser authors throw out references like that kind of stuff all the time without actually knowing how it connects to their universe, but not so Tolkien. In the Unfinished Tales, which, a series of Tolkien's notes, we find out a bit more about Beruthiel and her cats. Okay, so it's the Third Age. Obviously, the War of the Ring takes place in the Third Age, but so the War of the Ring takes place around 3000. Go back to like 830, 840. So you're 2000 years before the War of the Ring. Queen Beruthiel is the Queen of Gondor. She is married to King Taranon. Taranon was the first of Gondor's ship kings, so named because he developed a fairly impressive navy. He also loved the sea. And we get the idea that perhaps as a political marriage, an arranged kind of thing, he agrees to marry Queen Beruthiel, who is from the lands south of Umbar. She is a black Númenórean. So these are the folks that came over to Middle-earth in the Second Age, who were, of questionable moral character, let's say. But they have Númenórean blood. And so perhaps as a way to gain favor with Umbar and the lands south of there, he agrees to this marriage. Turns out he ends up being the first of Gondor's kings not to have an heir. It's a loveless marriage, and there are no kids born. So it ends up being, when he dies, his nephew Yarnil I takes over. But okay, so he agrees to marry Queen Beruthiel. Beruthiel, it's Elvish for angry queen, and Tolkien has nothing positive to say about this woman. In an interview he had, in his notes, this, I would argue, is the most evil woman in Middle-earth that Tolkien describes, I think. I think she holds that title. So, she's a black Númenórean, so right off the bat you're like, okay, she's sinister. Interestingly, she's from an inland city and she hates the sea. In fact, the first place she's put up in the king's palace in Pelargir, but it's, even though it's on the Anduin, there's too much water, and she hates the smell of the sea, and she's like, nope, I'm not staying, and she moves to Osgiliath instead. There she ends up having 10 cats. She's a cat lady. Crazy cat lady. No, here's the thing. Tolkien says she hates cats, but the cats are drawn to her. And he equates it to, I guess Tolkien had a friend that had cats, or that hated cats, but cats seem to tend to gravitate towards this person, maybe because this person hated cats. That was Tolkien's understanding anyway. So, she hates cats. Cats come to her. She has 9 black cats and 1 white cat. She apparently tortures them. Tortures cats. That's great. But she kind of delights in torturing them and tormenting them. And she basically ends up, she's got some type of ability to either see through their eyes or communicate with them. But she uses them as spies. So they're her slaves, essentially. And she sends the black cats out at night, one would presume, especially since we got this thing about the cats finding their way home at night. But she sends them out to spy on some of the lords of Gondor. The lords of Gondor all know about her. They all hate her, but they're kind of scared of her. And they're terrified of her cats. Curse their cats whenever they see them. Like, oh, they're good. There's Beruthiel's cats. Ah. And so these cats, the black cats, will spy on these lords, get information on them, and then she uses the white cat to spy on the black cats. So the white cat they're kind of the middlemen, right? The white cat is the middle cat between the actual spying and Beruthiel, and she gets all the information she needs from the white cat. Apparently, at some point, somewhere around the year 900, we don't know the exact year, but somewhere in there, somehow her spying gets out of hand. She's offended one too many lords, and so King Taranon exiles her, puts her on a boat, sends her back to her homeland south of Umbar. She's actually stricken from the Book of Kings. Now, obviously, she's not taken out of memory because 2,000 years later, Aragorn remembers her and her cats. But she is taken out of the official record. There is no Queen Beruthiel. We will deny all Beruthielness. And the quote from Unfinished Tales, as she is last seen heading to Umbar, it says, "The ship was last seen flying past Umbar under a sickle moon, with a cat at the masthead and another as a figurehead on the prow." So she and her cats, the cats she hates, the sea that she hates, she has got both of those things in her life as she goes back to Umbar. Interestingly, there is a big war that takes place with Umbar after Yarnil, the nephew, takes over. And King Tarnon dies in 913. Again, we're not sure exactly when Queen Beruthiel is set adrift, but it's probably somewhere near the time that he died. We don't actually know how Tarnon died either. It might be interesting. Died childless. You wonder if maybe there was some foul play involved, but who knows. Anyway, he died. Yarnil wages war on Umbar. And there's a thought that maybe because this exile happened, that alliances were frayed with Umbar in the land south of Umbar. So perhaps sending Beruthiel away, exiling her, taking her off the Book of Kings, led to this war with Umbar that eventually leads to Umbar being captured by Yarnil I in, I believe it's the year 933. So, any case, I think that's her part in all the political meanderings of all this. Now, interestingly, in Lord of the Rings lore, there's the 9 riders, right? So you got 9 black cats. It's kind of interesting that there were 9 black cats. So perhaps there's some symbolism there between, you've got Sauron and the 9 black riders and Saruman the White. Perhaps there's a Queen Beruthiel, the 9 black cats, the 1 white cat. It's maybe a bit of a stretch, but it's kind of an interesting analog there. In any case, Queen Beruthiel, horrible person. I think by all rights, the most evil woman that Tolkien describes in Middle-earth is certainly in the Third Age. So there you go. Well done, Queen Beruthiel. You won! Most Evil Woman in Middle-earth award. So, yeah, anyway, there you go. She gets one line from Aragorn, but then in traditional Tolkien fashion, there's a giant backstory to it. I think it's really awesome. So, if you've got an idea for one of these Dork Lord of the Rings topics, feel free to put it in the comments. I would be happy to discuss a topic of your choosing. Thanks so much, everybody, and I will talk to you next time.